Hello, our subscribers. Welcome to another Patreon subscriber show. We're going to get stuck in because I'm chasing my tail this week, time-wise. We'll get into that at the end of the show. We started off this week thinking about we're going to do some conspiracy theory stuff, some more of that. So let us know if you'd like some of that. The two that always pop into my head that entertain me are that Stevie Wonder's not really blind, which I hadn't heard that until about 2 years ago. That's one of the ones where you're like, fucking hell. Imagine if that was true. How much hard work that is for someone to do.
What? I
But
know
anyway,
what's the point in it?
yeah, I know. That's my favorite thing on loads of conspiracy theories. Like if you just go, yeah, but what's the point?
I
Why,
know.
why are they
Dead
doing
easy,
it anyway?
isn't it?
And the other one, which is like a mad one. I don't know whether you've ever seen any of this, but for another day maybe, is that Michelle Obama's a man. I mean, the mad thing is, I do have like a slight worry that if you start talking about stuff like that, the Secret Service start like popping up in your life and poisoning your dinner. So, but anyway, let us know if you want us to talk about that stuff. If you've never seen any of it, right? There is some boss stuff in it. It does make me laugh. But anyway, in our messages talk about things. If you're watching on the video, by the way, you're going to see me keep looking down at my notes. But so that's just what I'm doing down here. I'm not checking my emails at the same time as doing the show. So we ended up on messages like talking about doing some stuff about the media and bias and the recent controversy with Keir Starmer recently in these parts, at least for giving an interview to the Sun after saying he wouldn't. And so I was starting to like just research stuff like that, and it was getting a bit heavy. And then I literally searched for Keir Starmer, and this Google ad popped up. I don't know if you had a chance to look at this, what I've sent over to you.
Yeah, yeah. Just looking
Like
at it. Yeah.
literally, this Google had popped up saying, in the middle of serious political stories on Google, this little ad popped up just saying, buy a Keir Starmer cardboard cutoff. So obviously, I clicked on that of all the links, and it took me to this page on Amazon, and it was just fucking mental. And when you just like, so I just went down this rabbit hole instead because the more I looked at the political stuff and the media, so I was just like, do you know what? That's just depressing me, and I'm not in the mood to be depressed. So so we'll keep it light. So ended up going down this weird rabbit hole instead. Like you can literally buy a life size cardboard cutout of Keir Starmer. Who the fuck would want that? And a bit like what we've been saying, what's the point of the conspiracy theory? What would you do with that? What would you do with a life-size cardboard cutout of Keir
Don't
Starmer?
know. I mean, it's not that different to the real fella, is it? A cardboard cutout of him, because he's quite one-dimensional and wooden anyway. So what's the difference?
Have I ever told you what one of my mates said once? This is years ago when he first got appointed, and I was like, "It's such a good fucking point, such a basic, funny point, but so on the nose." He said, like, Starmer did, like, he read. My mate sent round the speech that Starmer had done, but he just sent us the text of it. So, Joe, you read the speech, and when we read it, like, good speech that, at the start, it was like saying everything you'd want it to say. And my mate went, "Yeah, waste of time though, innit?" Yeah. And we went, why? And he went, it's just not funny enough. You're like, what? He went, he's not funny enough. Like, to be a leader these days, a proper leader, like, and get votes and stuff, you need to have personality. You've got to be charismatic, and he's just not.
Mm,
And I was like,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't think any of them are, though, are they, at the moment? I mean, Sunak's not funny, is he?
No,
Um,
that's the upside for Starmer, isn't it? What's the
yeah,
competition?
I know. I mean, surely, we're doing politics now when we said we weren't doing politics, but
Well, I'll bring it back.
sure,
We all of these names we can bring back into life-size cardboard cutouts, by the way. That's going to be the theme. Go
Sunak's
on.
wouldn't be that big, would it? Um,
Is he
um,
little?
yeah, I think he's quite little, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but yeah, none of them are particularly engaging or interesting, are they? I don't think. I don't think. I know why people, with retrospect, think what they think about Tony Blair, for instance. But at the time, you know, I thought he energized it all, got things going. Did things a little bit differently. And got voted in off the back of it. And okay, without getting into all the rest of it about him, but there's something about him, wasn't there? I used to think there was something about Kinnock, but then he slipped on the beach, didn't he? And then that was that. And
It's not that just something like that can fuck your whole career up, isn't it?
I know. And well, you had the other fella as well, didn't you, Miliband, when he ate a bacon butty weird. Um,
And that's it.
it's anything, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's anything that can be focused on to say, he can't eat a bacon butty, so why would you want him leading the country?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's mad, isn't it? Like I can imagine Ed Miliband, especially going back. I know we said we weren't going to talk about politics, but here we are. Like sitting there, I could imagine him fuming. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've got all these fucking policies that could change the country. And it's like, but you can't eat a bacon butty, mate.
but I'm
And
doing it,
that's
aren't I?
important.
I've just said, like, or we've just said, Starmer's wooden and not much personality. Sunak's 5'6". I mean, like,
Yeah.
these things shouldn't matter, but I think we all know that they do, because like I always think, when it gets to election time and the manifestos come out and all that, I genuinely always think, right, I'm going to read them, and then I never do. And what do we do instead? I listen or read media's interpretation of them without figuring it out for myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what you should do for something as important as that is read the manifestos, is take the time. But who's got the time and the inclination? Do you know what I mean? And like, when everything else is doing its level best to drive down your ability to concentrate on something, then you know what I mean? Like, then it gets reduced to like a really base level over and over again, doesn't it? And I'm sure by the time it comes around to the next election, we'll be there again. Do you know what I mean? There's no doubt about it. Like,
Yeah. Do you know what's funny about that? This is a fucking tangent all over the place today, but I was watching this thing. I've been delving into YouTube stuff lately for our stuff and for my own stuff. Like, do you know, what's the key to like building stuff up and all that? And I was watching this young lad who like has had huge success, and he was unpicking things. But he was saying, because his success has been through this thing, and he called, like, I'd never heard this word before as a description of someone's job. He said the future of the word belongs to what he describes as synthesizers, which is people who can like accumulate information and then explain it to other people. Because exactly what you've just said, like, time's limited these days. So if you've got someone you
yeah,
trust, like, think about your favorite YouTube channels or stuff like that. It's often, well, it depends what you're into, doesn't it? But for me, like, it's often people who like do what you've just said. I don't want to watch the news, but they'll keep up with everything that's going on and then summarize it. And because I trust them, what they're saying, I'm like, oh yeah, that works. And I was like, oh, I like that. Like, that's something I've thought of doing in the past, because like in my other jobs, I've always been good at that. And I thought, oh, that's an interesting way forward. But well, it comes back to this, because I mean, that's the mad thing with the whole cardboard cutout world. Mate, I was thinking this about. I keep referencing Partridge. You an Alan Partridge fan?
yeah, but not like loads of my mates are, but like they can like quote like
Quote it.
reams of it and all that, and
Yeah.
like all the different like seasons and films and all. I'm not like that about it. I do find it funny, but I haven't watched as nowhere near as much as they have. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm more of a quite passive fan of it. Like, I do think it's funny. Don't get me wrong. And like, the classics when he was doing like the chat show type thing and all that way back when, and going on about pedestrianisation of, Norwich or whatever and all that. Then, yeah, now less so. And that advert for his current podcast is really doing me head in. I don't know how
Yeah,
much.
I think but this has just popped into my head. My support of my following of Alan Partridge completely matches. This is a mad thing to just realize. My support of Oasis over the years, like, when he was at his height, I was well into it, and like, so I'm like your mate, Joe, for a couple of series, and that's what I was going to reference, but I'll come back to. Well into it, but then as the years have gone on, I didn't even know it was still going. But it's like a new writing team and stuff like that. So, whenever I watch it now, I'm like, any of his new stuff, I'm like, oh, it's just not as good as it used to be. And then I found out it was a new writing team, and I was like, oh, that makes sense, because it's like they're still doing the same character, but it's become a caricature of itself, which I think happens loads in comedy, especially. But anyway, there's a very famous like scene from, I think, the best ever series he did, Joe, when he was living in a travel lodge,
Oh,
like,
yeah,
shitty hotel, and it's the one where he meets a super fan and goes into his house. Have you ever seen that one? And the room is
No,
just
I've
covered. The walls are just covered with pictures
heard
of his
about it though.
face.
Yeah, yeah.
But then there's just this little bit in the corner where like the whole room is proper like psycho pictures of Alan Partridge, life size cutouts of Alan Partridge, and then right in the corner there's like just a couple of David Copperfield. Alan Partridge is like, David Copperfield, and he's like, yeah, like, and Partridge's like, I mean, he's losing out in the competition for wall space, isn't he? He's like, yeah, I don't like him as much as I like you. But it made me think of these, because these, you can get all kinds of these cardboard cutouts. You can get all the big guy. You can get. I mean, you can get Donald Trump and Boris Johnson, which you'd expect, you know what I mean? But you can get Matt Hancock and Nicola Sturgeon, and I just kept picturing like the room like Partridge, but you know, like we should create one, and like our podcast studio, and just having them all behind us. Like, if you live by yourself,
Yeah, Jacob would be made up with the storage of them, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he doesn't even want us to leave our mugs there, does he? And I'll be coming in going, mate, we've had some
I've got
life-size
47 cutouts of various people in society. Can we leave them in the studio?
This one's Nicola Sturgeon.
It is weird. I mean, like, you know, students, it seems just a bit of a studenty thing. I will be one of my guesses at this. So, you know, like students like to be sort of, you know, I know I'm like massively generalizing, and I've been a student, but, you know, like they like to be a bit wacky and all that kind of thing. And, you know, in your halls of residence, you put all kinds of mad shit up on the walls and whatever, don't you? So I can imagine, like, you know, some kind of student common room with some of these in. But they're not cheap, are they? Like 40 nicker for you know, or thereabouts for like these life-size ones. Like,
well, you've just reminded me. I like that. Do you, when you just find the photo on your phone and you're like, or do you went to that thing where it pops up memories? And I was like, when the fuck was that? And there's a photo of me with a cardboard cutout of Mo Salah with like Christmas decorations on. I was like, fucking hell. And I realized it was at some girl's house. Like, I went back to her house when I was single, and I got in there. Do you walk into someone's house and like, what you think might go on, and you see a life-size cutout of Mo Salah. And you're like,
it's right, she's a red.
Yeah. Can I get me photo with Mo Salah? And you're like, that's not what we're here for. It's like, let's do that first. But that's funny, because on the same page you can get Jurgen Klopp, 35
well,
quid.
There's one of them.
But it is Dortmund years. He looks. It's going back to what we've said recently. He looks young and vibrant on it.
Yeah, there's one of them on the way to the match. If you walk down Waltonbreck Road, there's like a, you know, like there's like a burger van or whatever selling like Klopp burgers or Klopp dogs or whatever they're called, and they've got like a life-size cutout of Klopp on the side of the van, advertising the Klopp dogs or whatever they are. So seeing one of them, but yeah, it's all a bit weird, isn't it? You know, I presume they're like made to order or something, because I can't see like you're just having like a factory with like loads of Keir Starmers in, and a fella walking around with a clipboard going, why aren't these selling?
It's funny you should say that though, because like I often reference this. I've never referenced on the show. I think when I used to be a lawyer, when I started out, I was an insolvency lawyer, corporate insolvency, which is as boring as it sounds. But you would see loads of failed businesses, right? And you would see stuff like this, genuinely. And you're like, I've met people over the years where they're like, yeah, I had an idea for a business and then it just all went wrong. And I was like, what was it? I was like, just bought like 1,000, put me life savings into 1,000 cardboard cutouts of Keir Starmer. And then like you walk into a room and they're just all there piled up. And you're like, what was it that made you think this was a good idea? And it happens more often than you think. Do you mean the number of times over the years people have come to me and gone, I've got this amazing business idea, and Joey, like, I feel like someone other than your mum needs to give you feedback on this. Yeah. So it's a bit like when people are on X Factor and they're like, who told you could sing? It's like me mum and me nan. You're like, yeah, you need.
I had a lad saying to me last night, you know, like, you know, does everyone need a podcast though? And like he was going on about podcasts of people that, you know, he didn't particularly rate. And I was standing there thinking,
did he know you had one?
No, he knew I had one, yeah. But I was thinking, does he mean me? You know, the imposter was going like, is this like
aggressive,
backhanded, you know, like criticism? Is this saying it's shit that one used to, you know?
Yeah. You don't need to be doing it. Who was he? Just in, like, out in the pub?
No, I'll talk to you about this off air. It's someone you met in the last week or so, I think.
Oh, okay. I'm doing that
thing.
It's funny how often on our shows I'm like, you're doing something. I'm like, who can that be? And I'm trying to figure it out. I reckon I'd have got that in one.
Yeah.
Show. But this could be our new life ambition. I was thinking, like, Imagine if you went to someone's house. I have had people say to me, I've had mates like message me saying, I've just walked into someone's house and your voice was coming out the radio, and it's the most weird fucking thing I've ever experienced. You know, what I mean, it's like, how the fuck do you know my mate and why is his voice go? And he's like, oh, he's just I listened to it was like Amphiel rap back then. But imagine if
I've had a
imagine
few
if
of
someone
them.
walked into the house and there's a big cardboard cutout of you in
I
there.
mean, the cardboard cutout would be weird. There was a girl I knew that. So like back in the day, I think it was like my second job in journalism. I worked for a wonderful publication which is no longer with us in the Merseyside area called the Mersey Mart, which was a free paper with, and then they did like editions for like areas. So there was like a West Derby and Highton edition,
Yeah, I
and a
remember that. Yeah,
South Liverpool, Anfield, and Walton,
the type of
whatever.
thing my dad loved, the free paper.
So I wrote for them, and every time like like you'd have a piece on the front page or whatever, and it'd say like by Gareth Roberts, but there'd be like a little picture of me next to my name, and this girl I knew like used to cut out every like Gareth Roberts byline with the little picture, and used to stick it to her wardrobe. And so that was a bit, that when you look back, that was a bit passagey, wasn't it? I mean, she did it she did it like ironically for a lot. It was basically it was like my mate's at the time's girlfriend. It was her sister who did it, but she was definitely doing it like ironically to take the piss type of thing. Well, I think so anyway. But yeah, she had a wardrobe with loads of little Gareth Roberts' heads on, cut out from the Mersey Mart.
That's a bit
So
mad,
yeah,
even doing it ironically though. If you
I
think,
know. But the thing about like where like I've had it a few times where like people are walking the dog or whatever, listening to a podcast with me on it, and they see me and they're like, "Lad, you're in my ears, and there you are on the
that's
street."
weird, isn't it? Yeah,
And
that must be quite freaky.
that is weird, yeah. I mean, I guess it's weird for them as well. Do you know what I mean? As much as anything, do you know what I mean? Like waffling away, and then there's the fella who's waffling away. You get that. I mean, like to call it fame is obviously wrong. It's like a really sort of, it's more like low level recognition, I would say, than fame. But it is still funny though, and like I've done it to people who are famous. Where you just see someone and it's dead out of context and they're famous, and so your mind goes, them,
Yeah,
and before you know it, you've let on.
yeah,
And then you're like, oh shit, they don't actually know me. I've just seen them on the fucking telly.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I get that loads. People, and like, funny enough, this was another thing I was talking about last night. I was saying like, I have people agreeing with me, thankfully, saying my capacity to remember a large number of people it's not there, and so like I'm constantly finding myself in situations where people are like, oh, all right, Robbo, and so I'll just always go like, all right, mate, like how are we, Sam? You know what I mean? Do a general convo, and trying to go, do I know them? Have I met them? Do I know the name? Have we had a And sometimes I won't have met them, and sometimes it'll just be like they're literally letting on because they've seen me stuff type of thing, similar to what I just said. But there'll be others where it'll be like, oh, I remember we spoke on such a time and at such a game, or the live show you did in X, Y, or Z. And I'm just like, sorry, mate, no, because like loads of people have had this conversation with me and it's just not there. Like I read this book and I was saying this last night that I've probably still got it somewhere. And it was going on about like your capacity to remember stuff. Because this lad was like, saying the same thing. He's like, it really does my head. He's like, I can't remember stuff. And I was like, there are so many people saying this though, mate, that it suggests to me that the amount of things that like are now built to take our attention away, like your phone and all the apps on your phone and like the proliferation of media, I'm like, it's doing something to our short-term memory, i.e. we just can't remember. There's too much stuff. It's information overload. And so I think you shouldn't beat yourself up about it. I think there's no chance of you remembering all these things. And that's what this book was saying. It was saying, like, if you look at, like, say, Facebook as an example, and, you've got, like, 5,000 friends or whatever, there is no way in the world that you can remember every single one of them, who they are, why you know them, all of that. It's just your brain does not have the capacity to remember that amount of information. And that's what the book was saying, but it was sort of scientifically backing it up. It wasn't just like Robbo theory on a Friday afternoon. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, but it makes
so
sense, doesn't it? Like I
yeah,
always do this. Go back to like we are the same. We're fundamentally the same humans that were cave people. Like we haven't advanced that much, but the world around us has. Like, and think about that. So, how many people did you know when you were just a fella knocking around fields? Do you know what I mean? The people in
yeah,
your village, you wouldn't remember even all the people in your village, but you'd have mates, small group of mates, whatever, your family. So it makes perfect sense to me. And also you weren't getting bombarded with so much information all the time. Ironically, I saw a clip. The irony is that I watched this clip on social media last night, but it was a fella being interviewed on the Tim Ferriss podcast. Don't even know who he is, but
yeah.
he was saying he started a news. What did he call it? Sobriety. Called it being sober from news. So he'd started as a 1 month holiday from all news, all current affairs, all social media. And he started it 10 years ago and has kept it up for 10 years. And he said, because
Oh,
he said he did it for a month. And in that month, he read 8 books, which was the most. Joe, he basically said, right, I'm not going to watch any news or watch any social media or anything. And every time I would have done, I'll read part of a book. I think that's what he's basically saying. And he
yeah.
got through 8 books in a month.
Wow.
And he said that was as many books as he'd read in the previous 5 years put together. And he said, so he just carried on. And it was dead interesting because he went, like, I felt physically better, like not just psychologically, just physically. Everything about my
Yeah.
life was better. And he said, and I do this because I'm not that extreme, but I am for the most part. I just don't watch the news and don't participate in absorbing all this information. And a number of times, like, because he gave the example, and I experienced this in my own life. Like, one of his mates would be like stressing about something that was on the news, and he'd be like, do we really need to be worried about this? And it can sound really. I saw do you know who Mark Manson is, the author? He wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Oh yeah, I think I've got
Best-selling
that.
author, big blog and all that.
Yeah.
And I've followed him for years. And I saw him tweet a few months ago. He'd been interviewed on the BBC News, and he was like, didn't go well. And I thought, well, picture where he is though. Like he's literally saying to people hosting a news show for their job, no,
You don't
people
need
shouldn't
news.
watch the news.
Yeah.
Like it's bad for you. And they were saying to him, that means you're a horrible person. Basically, you've got no empathy for other humans. And he was like, no, it
Doesn't.
doesn't. It just means I don't feel like it's necessary for me to know that we've touched on this in the past about like when it's like major weather warnings, and you're like, yeah, one of them's in Florida and one of them's in North Korea. Like this is not affected. Like I don't need to stress about this, but I'll see this. I'll go to my mum's and she'll go to me like, oh, isn't it
Lads,
terrible news about the
you've
fella who
been
died?
you've been volleyed for not knowing the fucking intricacies of the Europa League and how many games it is every season.
Have I on our comments?
Yeah. It's like where's he got that number of games from? Fucking lawyer maths there and all this. And I went back to one fella who's serially posted negative comments about us, by the way, which is my motivation for going back, you know me. And I just said, mate, it's not that big. Like, people are allowed to just make a mistake. Like, the way we spoke about it, I think we both went, I don't know what it is. And then you tried to work it out on air. But no one said, this is what it is. We just tried to work it out on air. And
But
then when I think it's that. And then there's loads going, oh, have you got that? It's this. And it's like, what's this desperate need to look for, like, a mistake and comment on the internet about it? He's literally said he doesn't know what it is and then tried to guess. So, it's not like a big gotcha moment or something, you
yeah,
know what I mean?
even if it was like, even if I'd said it's 32 games and it's 36, like I'm what? Like the world isn't going to end. Like no one's asked. I don't give a fuck. But that's it. It's entertaining. That where's that on YouTube?
Yeah, that's over on our This is Anfield show about Liverpool Football Club every Monday and Wednesday.
Yeah,
Available also as a podcast.
yeah. If you're not getting your fill of me and Robbo talking about shite about very random stuff, then you can hear us talk shite about Liverpool Football Club now. And
we
clearly,
prepped for that one.
like, yeah, like, and Joe said funny about that literally. And I've been meaning to speak to Neil on the wrap. They've sent me an invite today to go on their review show. And I've been thinking about it, and I'm going to phone him and say, look, mate, I'm happy to do other shows, but I'm not going to do the review anymore. And I have said this to them in the past when I was on it last season. I was like, it's just gone beyond me. Like what I want to, when I'm watching footy, like I watched the Europa League game the other night. I realized at the end of the game, I'd missed all 3 goals.
Well
Because
done.
like, that's how much attention I'm paying to it. So for me to go on a show and be like talking about, and we've joked about it in the past, but the OBV and like XG, and I'm like, it's just not where I can't add value anymore. Do you know what I mean? When they're like, what did you make of the intricate position in between? I'm like, I'm not watching it that closely anymore, to be honest, lads. I have to watch it again just so I can see the goals, if I'm being completely honest with you. Do you ever do this? And this is think about this for attention thing. I do this reading books as well. It's like your brain has a blackout. So it's like, I'll think, oh, I missed the goal, so I'm going to watch that bit again. And then I watch it again. And at the exact same moment that I did last time, my brain switches off. Do you ever do that?
Yeah. No,
So
I've done that. Yeah,
going,
with the book, you I end up having to read it back again and then go,
how have
oh
I
yeah,
had to read
like
this
it didn't
page
go in
3 times?
Yeah, it just doesn't go in sometimes, or you're distracted, or you're slightly thinking about something else or whatever. I mean, the phone's always a classic, isn't it? If you try and watch the match at home, but you've also got the phone and you're on, well, you're not paying attention to the match, and so you're gonna be distracted. Funnily enough, I yeah, it's mad, isn't it? I mean, Debbie pointed a good one out to me the other day because I'm wary of it. And yet again, I'm at the place where I'm like, I need to be on my phone less here. I'm doing my own head in with it. But equally, I feel like because we're doing Liverpool shows, I need to be constantly reading about Liverpool and up to speed on Liverpool again and all that. But Debbie buzzed off me the other day because I'd stayed in hers. And then I was just brushing my teeth in the bathroom. And she was like, wow, that's a new one, Gareth. And I was like, what? And she was like, you're brushing your teeth, reading your phone. She went, that's literally worse than the lads, do you know what I mean? Because he's always like, the lads are as though always on the phone. And I'm like, yeah, I was just reading about the footy. And she's like, yeah. Well, when you're brushing your teeth, though. I was like,
yeah.
But
you know what?
Fair point.
I was going to say whoever owns Twitter, I don't know now, but the likes of Musk and Zuckerberg and all that, they must celebrate when they hear stories like that, mustn't they? We've got
Because I got, you get those reports off your iPhone about how long you've been on and all that. Mine used to be awful, and it's gone back to being awful. I got it down. I was celebrating internally when it was saying I'd only been on for about 5 hours a day. But now it's back up to about 8, and I'm like, that's far too much to be on your phone,
though, isn't it? When you get those reports, it's frightening, I think.
Yeah, it is.
You're like, how have you spent that much time
have you
a day on it?
Have you seen the detailed ones as well? Where if you want, you can go into third. I just tend to look at the headline and go, yeah, that's depressing enough. I'll leave it there. But you can go. It's got detail, like how many times you've picked it up and checked it and things like that. Do you know what I mean? You can get those. Yeah, you can get those stats up as well, and they're depressing as well. Because it is an addiction ultimately, isn't it? There's no two ways about it. I'm addicted to see what's going on.
I bought a book once about it. It was
phone addiction.
It was the book. The book was called Hooked. I've got it somewhere in a box. I haven't got it out yet since I moved out. And it's literally about how you do it. It's about how you build addictive loops into your products so that you keep people coming back for more. And it was, as I was reading it, I might have mentioned this in the past, but it was when I was building an online gambling company, and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to build a product that's based around getting people addicted to it. That's not something I want. It doesn't sit comfortably with me. And that's it. I remember seeing if you've watched The Social Network, the movie about Facebook.
Yeah, it's good, that.
The guy who's played by Justin Timberlake, what's his name? He'll come back to me. He was the guy who created Napster, I think. And he left. He was a big part of Zuckerberg turning Facebook into the monster it is. And then he left a few years later. A bit like I keep joking with you about all these fucking AI people who are coming out now, trying to warn everyone, saying, oh, I was part of the people who created this, and now I just want to tell you it's going to kill everyone. And you're like, lad, didn't you think this through when you were fucking building it in the first place?
Oh, yeah.
And that guy, whatever his name was, it's Sean something, I think. He said, this is all this talk about being addicted to Facebook and social media. He was like, don't for 1 second think it's an accident. It was designed like that.
Oh, sure.
Designed to make you addicted to it. Don't be naive. Yeah. And then there was a Netflix documentary that came out last year, which basically was about all of this. And it's yeah. And that's when I'm coaching people and stuff, I'm like, you've got to you have to put into context what you're up against if you want to come off it and you want to undo that addiction, because you are literally up against multiple billions of dollars that's arguing against you,
Oh
basically
yeah,
trying to
100%.
change your
Well, we
behavior.
talked about this before, haven't we? And it's that even down to like how you're notified, and like even like on that documentary, I think it says about like it's no secret that you get like red dots and things like that, because that's being that's like urgency. Like it says that you've got to like and I remember like saying someone came in to see us once at that app. Predictably, I can't remember her name or why she came in. But she was just sort of like looking at how we were running the place, and sort of like how we all were dealing with running a company type of thing. It was that kind of thing. And I remember when I had my sort of like I had a little chat with her in a room or whatever, and like my phone was just like dinging away with like tweets, emails, tech, blah, blah. And like she said, that's like really unhealthy the way you've got that set up there. She's like, how can you possibly concentrate on anything when that's like doing that? And I said, I know. And then and like even lately, like I'm
You
trying
should
to
have, you've
get
had an opportunity for a boss joke in there.
what?
You should have just done that. Joe, it's like when people do
Who are
my
you?
favorite joke about yeah, when she said it, just go, sorry, I wasn't listening. I was
Yeah. Yeah, who are you again? I mean, I've been trying to get into like better routines. I wouldn't say I've been particularly successful currently, but one of the things that I have found works, surprise, surprise, is if you use that sort of there's the thing on your phone, isn't the focus, and basically like you can turn focus on and then it stops. And you can get that into detail. You can basically say like if someone rings me 3 times in a short space of time, then let it actually ring, so I know,
oh
because that
really?
yeah.
I
So
always
that's
think this. I always laugh about this, but phones like they're dead sophisticated, but I probably know how
we
to
don't
use like
use
two
half of the
percent of
thing.
it.
Yeah, I know. And well, the focus thing's really interesting if you have a look at that, because you can set it up in all kinds of ways. And the point being, you can set it up so that it's facilitating you doing work. Do you know what I mean? Like, because one of my problems is like I'll have a good idea and then it'll just take me ages to either write it or whatever, because I'll constantly get distracted by other stuff. So I've started using the focus thing and just going, I'm just going to write. I'm not even going to look at the internet. I'm going to write. I'm going to get everything out of my mind. I'm not going to even check facts. I'll do that later because that requires the internet, and that's a potential way of getting distracted. Just get it all out, get it all down, get like a first draft down if you like, and then go, okay, right, sound. Now I feel like I've done something. Now we can go back and fact check. Now, blah, 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 blah. And like I found it's worked, surprise, surprise, for a few things. So, I've been trying to write a bit more and doing little bits for love, follow, conquer, and all that. And that's one of the ways of being able to do it. Just using that focus thing on my phone. But it's mad that you even have to do it, isn't it? I'm having to like guard against my own behavior almost. Like, do you
Yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean?
Well, I've read all kinds of things about people like authors and stuff doing things like they've got a laptop that doesn't have access to the internet. It's
Yeah.
just got like a word processor on it, basically. So
Well,
everything,
I've heard that of writers as well, as in like like fiction writers and that like
yeah.
there's one I spoke to once who said he said I just can't work in the house. I just can't. He said I've tried everything. He said, but I just always get distracted by something. And he said like it, and I said, well, what do you do then? Because it's literally a living. And he said, oh, I've got a little place that I go to. Like, I just, I'll rent it out for a few days. It's in North Wales. It's near the mountains, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's got an amazing view out the window type of thing. He said, but you can't get the internet there. It's not there. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, there isn't a choice to get the internet. It's not available there. So he said, like, you're almost forcing yourself to focus, forcing yourself to write because there's nothing else to do. And then obviously, like once you force yourself into it, you eventually find some kind of pattern or rhythm and you can get it done. It's dead interesting though. Like, I mean, one of the best books I've ever read on the sort of craft of this type of stuff, which will apply to loads of people's jobs. You don't have to be a writer or anything, but there's a Stephen King book called On Writing, and he talks about how because he's prolific, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? And like he's written so many like great books, some great books that have ended up being films and all that. I love his stuff. I've read a lot of Stephen King. But on writing's great because like here's a fella that I really respect who thinks absolutely brilliant at his craft and all that. And there's loads of stuff in there where you're like, fucking hell, it happens to him as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So he'll say, like, he says, like, he has got like a bit of a routine. Like, he always wants to be at his desk by this time in the morning to start writing. He said, but some days it just doesn't happen. It doesn't come. It's not there. And he said he sort of got a bit of a rule that if that happens, you know, he's got like a certain amount of time where he'll keep going and he'll keep trying, but then he'll go, it's not happening. Go for a walk, you know, go and do something else. He said, but what sometimes happens is the inspiration for something will come at really mad times. And he said, but I always make sure that I've got a way to write. Like, and he goes on about like I can't remember what book this was for. I think it might have been Misery. But he was staying in some hotel, and he like woke up in the middle of the night and just had this. He had this like dream, and it was formulating dead quick into like an idea. And he was like, I just knew that I needed to get it down there and then. So he was like this madman going to like reception saying, have you got something I can write on now? Do you know what I mean? And like he ended up in some mad room with like a typewriter, and he was like furiously putting all these ideas down, and then went to bed. And like, you know, I do that, like not to, I mean, as if not to Stephen King's extent, unfortunately, but you know, I do have ideas at mad times, and I always try and put them in the notes on my phone, like as like, you know, that's a piece, that's a start to something. I've got like, I'm sitting at my desk now, and I've got like, for those on video, there's an absolute pile of post-it notes, which is just loads of you know, I'll be getting on with my day, and something will come to me, and I'll go, oh yeah, and I'll put it on a post-it note. But now I'm getting anxiety that I need to collate the post-it notes into something more organized than loads of post-it notes. But yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny you should say that, because I literally was taking away, because we moved into the new house like 6 weeks ago, something like that, and I still have boxes lying around. And just the other day, I was like, I need to sort out these boxes. So I started going through one of the boxes, and I found a pile of post-it notes just like that, and just put them in the bin. Because I started looking at them going, they make no fucking sense to me. They've got like ideas on that. Obviously, when I wrote the idea, meant something, and now I'm like, that I need a better system than this. That means nothing to me anymore. But it's funny you should mention that, because Joe, as per our tradition, none of this is included in the agenda of what we're going to talk about. But so what? Like because I've written 2 books, one much shorter than the other. But it always baffled me when I hear lots. I've listened to lots of authors talk over the years, fiction and non-fiction writers, and most of them talk like they're being tortured to write. Do you know? And I've always been like, why are you doing this job then? Go and do something else. Like, and it's really interesting hearing Stephen King's version, because that's what I do. That's exactly what I do. It's like, if it's not coming, it's a creative pursuit. So if it's not coming, you can't force it. Go and do something else. Go for a walk. Go and play a game, and just make sure that when it comes, like, you fucking get it down, because like that's your job basically. Like, it's me and my fucking woo-woo shit these days, but like that's the downloads from the internet for me. It's like when you listen to the likes of Noel Gallagher, or I've heard Chris Martin, Paul McCartney all say it. I've probably said this before, but one of my favorite things, like whenever they're asked about writing their biggest hits, like how long did it take, everyone expects them to say, oh, 6 months, and they're always like 5 minutes. Just came to me, and it just fucking, it was the easiest one to write. It's all my shit songs took me ages because I was trying to force them, and I had that, like, I remember and again, same as you, let's put the caveat in, we're safe behind the paywall, but if this was on YouTube, you can imagine people doing the, can't you? Fucking hell, comparing themselves to Stephen King and Noel Gallagher, and you're like, no, obviously not. But like my first book, it took me 4 days to write, because I'd seen a course, I'd been on a course about like how to structure a book to get information out of your head into a thing. So I created the structure, and then I was just filling in the blanks with what I already knew. Do you know what I mean? And it was the same with the second book. That took me a bit longer, but it wasn't like when I listened to these other authors talking about like, oh, it was fucking painful. It wasn't. I probably did the whole thing in about 6 months, but it was just, I just wrote it when I felt like writing, when something came to me, and I was like, because by doing that, you'll write 2,000 words, and they'll just, you know what it's like when something's there You just fire out something, don't you? And you've written 2,000 words, and it's great. But when we've both had this, and I'm sure all writers had that experience of like, that's why I don't like writing to deadlines. When I used to write every week for the rap, and I just got to the point where I was like, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Because when it's like, we need you to have an article in by Tuesday at 5 p.m. On Monday night, inevitably you're going, what am I going to write this about? And then you are like, it's like you're forcing 50 words out at a time.
Yeah.
Like, that is painful. Like, well, that's where I'm listening to these authors going, if that's what you're doing for your living, mate, I just do something else. Because the way Stephen King does it is enjoyable. If you just let yourself go, go for a walk, it's fine.
Another little weird one I found that's like quite good as well is sometimes to not use a computer or a phone. So like I've got, again, if you're not watching on video, you don't know what I'm on about, but like, look, I've got the back of an envelope with a piece on it, basically.
I've literally got the same, yeah.
And then it's because I was starting to run out of space, it's then inside the envelope as well.
Yeah. Because how funny is this? Yeah, for people watching on.
Wow. Great minds or not, as the case may be. But because I was the reason that happened, I was like, I have little, I'm sure we all do, you have like little routines about, like turning things off, and I'm always like, if someone's going to break in the night, well, they're probably going to like rifle downstairs, so I'll take my laptop upstairs then, do you know what I mean? And like you can bring it on, you prick, because I've got a baseball bat under my
pillow,
bed.
you prick. I keep me money, me laptop, and me gun under me pillow, you prick.
So as I was doing that routine, this idea came to me, and I thought, oh, that's good, that. And then the only thing that was in front of me was an envelope, and I didn't want to open the laptop again because it was like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, whatever it was. I was going to bed. So I just started scribbling down this idea for a piece. And yeah, it's still there. I haven't converted it to an actual thing where I could send it to someone, but I will do. But it felt good to get that out, though. Do you know what I mean? Is what I'm saying. Like, it felt good to put that down. It felt good to actually write it rather than type and looking at a screen and all that kind of stuff as well.
But it's funny, isn't it? Because it just dawned on me as we're chatting now. Our process for doing these shows is exactly what we're talking about without us realizing it. Between shows, we've started to do that, and that's why, like, I threw in a thing at the start about, Joe, tell us if you want us to talk about conspiracy theory stuff, and there was another one I was going to come to about like the movie thing we've mentioned before. Tell us, would it be fun to listen to us watch some like old shitty 90s movies and talk about the plots and all that? Because I've watched another one, Con Air, with Nicolas Cage. It's just like, this fucking plot of this movie is fucking bananas. Like, we'll put 20 of the country's worst criminals on one plane to move them across. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah.
And that's just part of the story. Like, the other stuff that's weaved into it, you're like, fucking hell, lads. So yeah, I'll say that now. We want you to like tell us what you want to hear as well. What you want to hear us talk about. Any more of what we've done already? Any new ideas? As Robbo said in the past, we will use stuff. Because we have,
I think we're trying to like still, it's a bit mad, isn't it? Because when I'm talking to people, like last night was a prime example, and I was trying to sort of explain what we're doing and why we're doing it, and I still feel like it's hard. I mean, like, we seem to be like more and more going towards like it's, we talk about middle age or whatever, but then like it's like, well, is that a big enough, or wide enough topic that we can do 2 podcasts a week about it? Like, I want to get one out about, football, like, and I know loads of people said don't do football or do football, and so we ended up torn and we don't know whether to do football or not now. But like, I want to do one about, and I think it might be on Monday, to be honest with you, as long as I get the time. I just want to do like the Chargers City are facing and a bit of Saudi and all that, and just talk about how it's mad where footy's gone, and it's mad that people don't talk about it that much. You know what I mean? So like, they do sometimes, but then it's sort of like the all go mainstream go. It's boring that now, so we'll pretend City are the greatest football team ever, and we won't reference it anymore. Do you know what I mean? And like, you can see everyone like on Twitter and things like that saying, "Well, Sam, but what about these charges? And what about this? And what about that?" And then also, it's mad the corner that some City fans have got themselves into, where they're going, none of this is true and it's a big conspiracy and we've actually got a great football team. How dare someone over there suggest that this isn't quite right? And again, when you challenge some of those people, they're like, they haven't got anything for you. They're like, oh yeah, you keep mentioning the Spiegel, lad. Well, it's all being doctored. Oh yeah, well, show me where it's being doctored then. No, lads.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like big tumbleweed. So we might do that as well. But
Well,
we're meant to be talking about shit gifts.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We haven't got time now. We'll do that another time. But the point I was just going to make is this is a perfect example of what we're talking about. Between shows, we're like, what should we talk about? And then as soon as we just start talking, it just comes naturally.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like none of this, if
Yeah.
you'd have said to me, what's this show going to be about? I'd be like, well, I've done an agenda. And I know our regular listeners are used to us joking about this now. Well, I've done an agenda. That's an hour's show right there. We've done like 1/10 of it.
We liked the feedback, didn't we? We liked some feedback we got the other week, which made us laugh. Where, like, I'm sure you'll be watching, mate, and you'll know it's you. But we genuinely laughed at it. It was like a bit of a mad show, this, lads. It's like you're just reading out your spam folder in email. It's like, yeah, that's literally what we were doing.
The funny thing about it was he put it in as like a let's say constructive criticism, wasn't it? Like, I didn't like this one, and we both laughed because he was like, the criticism was it sounded like, as you just said, it sounded like you read out your spam folders, and we were like, yeah. But I was joking. I think you'd gone for a piss the other day in the studio when I was talking about this, but I was talking to Dylan in the studio about it, and I went, yeah, but you could describe every show we've done like that, couldn't you? Lads, I don't really like this show. It's just basically about you talking about going to hospital. Like, yeah, I don't like this show, lads. It's just basically you talking about being 40 odd. Like, yeah. And I said to Dylan, I remember when I was traveling when I was 22-ish, and I was in the States, and like, me and my mate were getting all excited about going to the Grand Canyon, and we were chatting to this American fella, and he was just like, oh, I never get it when like all you tourists are like excited about going to the Grand Canyon. It's just a big hole in the ground. And I remember going to him even at 22. I went, yeah, but that's a dead like reductive way of thinking about the world, isn't it? Because that's just like going, why would you want to go and see Niagara Falls? It's just a big waterfall. Why would you want to go and see the Statue of Liberty? It's just a big statue. Like, well, if that's the way you look at life, everything's shit, isn't it? That's the maddest thing. My favorite thing about the Statue of Liberty is everyone who's seen it in real life, the biggest thing they say about it is it's not that big.
It's not that big.
It's dead, like dead underwhelming when you see it. It feels like it could fit in your pocket. You're like, yeah.
Start it. Yeah. And then you're just on like Staten Island ferry or whatever, going like the Mersey ferry, this.
Yeah. Yeah.
without the Bosch Skyline.
But that's a good point, isn't it? Well, and you know what? I think we probably should do the footy one, but it comes back. We were going to talk about conspiracy theories. The number of times I hear people label something a conspiracy theory, and I'm like, I'm not sure where the conspiracy is, though. Like, the conspiracy theory behind this is people with loads of money and power control what's going on. I don't see where the conspiracy is. Do you know what I mean? If you're like, think about it, what's going on behind the scenes in footy? Why are certain stories just don't actually get that much air when they should, really, when you think about it? And it's like, well, there's one answer to that, which is it's driven by clicks. Do you know what gets the most clicks? But when you say that about Man City in particular, and maybe we should say this for the bigger show, but I'm like, yeah, but I actually think Man City don't get that many clicks, as the story of Man City are just brilliant, gets fewer clicks, I would guess, than the story of they're fucking cheats. Look at all of this. So why does that doesn't make any sense to me? It does make sense to me that the money behind the scenes goes, just, we don't want that in the media, thanks. Like, what? How is that also, conspiracy?
And also they really looked after people who report on City. And
exactly.
That's true.
This is stuff we know, isn't it?
I've been in the press box there, and it's like unbelievable. It's like, they have chefs, and like the food they're pumping out is not like your bang average stuff that you're getting at half time. It's unbelievable gear, and like beers in the fridge, and you know what I mean. And like, so the people who have influence, who like at the very top of journalism, getting paid 6-figure salaries to write about football, you can bet your bottom dollar that like that there's regular contact between them and big wigs at City, and it's like, oh no, what fans are saying over there is not true, because of this, and it's not true because of that, and actually we're doing this, and actually we're sound, and there'll be continual PRing of these people. And also as well, like I guess you have got to just reach the point where you're just like, well, we're just cracking on. And like if you're the big writers for the big papers, you've got your choice of like 20 clubs every week, to pick a story from. Do you know what I mean? And I always say that, like I was saying that last night, that this thing was that the way a football fan covers their own club in media is a million miles away from our journalists would do it, particularly like a mainstream one at the top of the, because they just do not devote as much time to like Liverpool in our case because they can't, because they've got to keep over like Arsenal, Man United, Man City, and all the rest of it. They've got to keep across everything and almost be this sort of semi-expert on everything. But that means you can't be an actual expert on everything because there's not enough life to be able to do it. But, whereas like, people who cover Liverpool as a job, then all they're focusing on is the one thing. So yeah.
But it's funny, isn't it? That's actually why fan media took off, I think.
100%.
Because you ended up with like fans who were spending all their time watching something.
Yeah.
Who've got a better opinion.
And that's not a new thing, you know what I mean? Like I think the first fanzine's 1974. And there's a fanzine, the City Gent by Bradford City, for Bradford City. That's been going since '84 and it's still going now, and it's still in print as well. So fair play to I think his name's Mike, the fella who runs that. I spoke to him in the past. So it's not a new thing. And like, you look at like Hillsborough and things like that. I've got quite a few fanzines, other clubs fanzines, and like, we're still at a stage now where we're talking about dickheads who say dickhead things about football disasters. If you read those fanzines at the time, like I've got a QPR one, I think various others, they're talking about how this could have been us. We've been treated so badly by the police, the stadiums are falling down, and like there was no like the weird blame culture that came later and all this, Scousers this and Scousers that. There was football fans from all over the country, right? And A, this is incredibly sad. B, this could have been us. C, this is the police. And like, I even remember like When Saturday Comes, which is like, a national football fanzine, if you like. There's a cover of, and it's saying like, Hillsborough disaster or whatever. And then the front cover is like Thatcher saying, well, it wasn't us. And the police saying, it wasn't us. And then a crowd with like a bubble coming from the crowd saying, oh, well, it must be us then. And that's from way back when. And that's a national football fanzine. But that's a prime example of people writing those fanzines knew and had experienced it and, lived it, if you like. And if you're in a press box, well, you don't know what it's like to get crushed in a crowd then, do you? And you don't know how you get treated by police and stewards and stuff like that. And the same applies now. That's still a thing now. So, that for me, like fan media is not going to go away. I think what's interesting, and again, I keep saying it, I may as well say what it was. I was talking at this like sort of market and social event in Liverpool last night. And, I was saying there's so many things that you cover about Liverpool or about any club in a different way if you're a fan. That for me, fan media is just going to overstrive. It's not going to go away. The mad thing is when mainstream try and tap into it, though, I think. So, like to give... Channel 4 gave Robbie off Arsenal Fan TV a show on the telly. And, I've met Robbie and he's all right, but it was shit.
Was it? I didn't realise that happened. They actually gave him his own show on mainstream TV.
Yeah, and then it was like, talking to fans and what have you. But obviously it was like, watered down compared to, something you would do for YouTube. It
can't or work, a podcast. That kind of.
That's what I mean. And it's the same with, like Goldbridge. Like, I know he's like, some people love him, some people hate him and all that, and that's kind of the point. I found myself absolutely buzzing off him the other night. Like, the way he was describing the Bayern Munich goals against United was funny. But then he has a show on Talk Sport, and like I listened to it, and like, he's good. He's a good broadcaster, but he's just dead straight back when he's on the radio, obviously. And like, it's just like, I mean, fair play to him. He's obviously going to be getting paid for it and stuff. And, absolutely every respect that he's making a living out of these things and getting a mainstream.
Fair play,
yeah, but like, there's no Goldbridge in it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, because it's going back to Partridge, it's like the Partridge-esque stuff that he does. And he knows that.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that we all love when we're buzzing off him on the internet, isn't it? He doesn't do that on his radio show because I guess in his head he's thinking, I can't do that. I've got to be more straight bat. It's mainstream, and so, but it's interesting the way people in mainstream constantly try and tap into that fan media, and they never get it right. I mean, you know, I did stuff where, you know, I was making little videos with my phone on the final whistle and sending them in. And they used them on BT Sport, used them as like part of their coverage, not just me,
I remember,
but like,
yeah, I remember that, yeah.
and like, you know, loads of people were buzzing off me saying like, just seeing you on the, you know, in the pub after the match and things like that.
Yeah.
And like, there was a boss one where Harry Redknapp said in the studio was like, oh yeah, he knows his stuff. I've seen him before. I was like, get in,
I
yes,
remember that.
Harry.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, it was like, you know, I'd go on and have a rant, but like it'd be a controlled rant. It'd be like, this is going on mainstream telly. I can't swear. I can't call someone a knobhead. I can't, you know, can't really, really let my emotions go. And that's what is good about fan media, isn't it? Because you can let your emotions go and you can do all that stuff. And that's why people want it and blah, 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 blah.
Absolutely. And it's funny actually. Well, there's a few different things. I'll stick to the nice one. You remind me of a story. I remember this is a reference for our older demographic. I remember Michael Parkinson talking about Billy Connolly, who I've mentioned a couple of times recently. But he was saying, like, and again, I'm not putting fan media and us and all that in the same category as Billy Connolly, but it's the same point. He said the mainstream could never fit. They always wanted to like take Billy Connolly and put him in something. Like, so they created a sitcom around him, and he was just like, it just never worked. And he went, it's because they never got their heads around the fact that Billy Connolly is the thing. Like, you've just got to let Billy Connolly be Billy Connolly. And that's why it's funny. If you take him away from being Billy Connolly and put him in something mainstream, he stops being Billy Connolly.
Yeah.
So it's not as funny anymore. Because
have you read
the watered down version of Mark Goldbridge is just an all right presenter, isn't it?
Have you read Bob Mortimer's book?
The one he brought out the other month, like, it's a fiction book, isn't it?
No, not that one. The one about his life. The one, his autobiography.
I could have just said no because I haven't read any of his books. But
I haven't read that other one. I want to have a go with that one, the fiction one he wrote. But no, I absolutely love him. I like, you know, genuinely just think he's a boss fella, and like I absolutely love the fishing program and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I haven't watched that, but I need to because I'm the same. I fucking love him. It's that good, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, it's quite heartening. It'd be a good one for you to watch, mate, because you know the way we get like the mad, like anxiety, imposter syndrome type thing about doing this. I'm sure you get it, you know, where you're like, what am I doing here? What are we talking about? And why is anyone asking all that? Watch that, mate, because that's that. It's the same. It's like two fellas who are mates. So and there's loads about, you know, talking about, you know, health and fucking heart attacks and, you know, what they eat and what they drink and all that. There's just loads of that, and it's a bit, you know, it's a bit random basically, but it's nice because they're mates, they get on, and like you can relate to loads of it. And plus, Bob's funny and keeps falling over, and he's shit at fishing and stuff like that. But yeah, I read his book, and his book was dead interesting and dead honest, and was just loads of what we've just said really, because he talked about how, you know, he met Bob. And like he was like he was a lawyer, wasn't he, Bob? And you know, he talked about how he got into all that. Talks about like growing up and, you know, playing footy and being a big Middlesbrough fan and all that kind of stuff. And apparently he's quite decent at the lawyer gig. And it was just absolutely random that he fell into the comedy. He just basically got to know Vic Reeves and then became like a bit of a sidekick.
Yeah.
He did this absolutely wild stage show. They got spotted, they got a show. But then, by his own admission, like, you know, you got like TV companies giving them like really mad shows where like they had to act and stuff like that. And he was like, you know, I'm not an actor. Like, you know, I'm not a trained actor, and you're asking me to act. And like, it's quite funny, like, sort of, you know, he's saying like, I knew myself that this was shit and like that I couldn't act and I couldn't do it. But, you know, you're just going to go along with it type of thing. And that's the same thing again. What you know, whoever spotted them in the first place, they wanted to recreate the madness of those original stage shows, and that's what worked, and that's what people loved. And obviously, like Big Night Out and stuff like that were wild and, you know, really like off to the left, and it worked because they were doing the stage show, but some of the other stuff that they threw them in, I can't remember what that drama thing they were in was. I remember thinking it was shit.
Yeah.
And then they sort of, Shooting Stars was obviously like, oh, I absolutely loved that. I thought that was absolutely
Yeah, me too.
brilliant. And that was, back to the chaos, wasn't it? And back to the madness of what originally made them.
Yeah.
But his book's really good because it's dead honest. Because Bob is, I think what's dead likable about him is like he's a genius. I think he's brilliant. He never fails to make me laugh. But he's also a normal fella. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dead normal fella, into his footy, into his music. Not had a perfect life, by his own admission, and like is constantly talking about his failures and why he's not that good at X or Y or Z, and his books like that. And yeah, anyone who hasn't read it, heartily recommend. Top fella.
Right. Well, that's a good one to take away with me for the weekend then, because I've got to go because there's something else we were going to talk about, but we haven't got time. But we may do another time.
Well, we've done
I've
it.
got
We've done a show.
Well,
Get
no, we've
it.
got a full show again from fucking random tangents.
Well, if
yeah,
nothing else, mate, I enjoy these chats. So from 12 o'clock today to 2:08 now, when we're recording all this stuff, I definitely feel better now than I did then.
there we
So
go. That's the main thing.
For that reason alone, let's keep doing it.
Yeah. I know. Hopefully, people just enjoy us still talking about shite generally. But let us know, and let us know if you've got ideas that you want us to talk about. If you see topics that you think I'd like to hear Robbo and Kobe talk about, that fire it in and let us know. And as you've seen, we will pick up ideas that we like. So that's it. Have a good weekend. We'll see you next week.